Hello everybody, I'd like to start this video with an apology. It's been quite a while since I did one of these videos, and the reason is basically I've been so busy actually playing and reviewing games that I haven't had time to sit down and do a video as well. It's been a very busy period of the year for game releases for whatever reason, and keeping my head afloat, keeping above water, has been more than a bit challenging. So one of the reasons that it has been such a busy period of time for me in terms of playing and reviewing games has been this particular title, which is the latest in Koei Tecmo's very long-running Nobunaga's Ambition series. This series has been around since the original NES and Game Boy, and it's still going pretty strong. This is actually the third game in this particular series on the PlayStation 4, for example, at least in the West, and it is good. It is really good. I've got a review coming up on digitallydownloaded.net very soon, obviously, and it's a very in-depth one. This is one of my favourite strategy game series of all, and this is actually one of the better examples of that series across its entire history. So you can probably guess just how hooked I've been on it, to say the least. And these games are always demanding of time, but in this particular instance, I've been more than willing to put the time into it. The reason for this video is these games are also very complex and in-depth, and I wanted to give you a sense, I guess, of what to expect from the game, because I think Nobunaga's Ambition, which took a big break in the West, is not well known by a lot of players anymore. So they'll see the box, they'll see that Koei is promoting or whatever, but they won't necessarily know what the game's about. They might think it's another Samurai Warriors game or something actiony, or they might think that they'll look on the back of the box and think that it's a relatively straightforward strategy game, but it's none of those things. It's actually a very complex one, more akin to an in-depth version of Civilization, I guess, than anything else. So I wanted to do this video looking at just a couple, not all of them, but a couple of the systems that the game has going for it. What you're seeing on the screen in front of you is me playing as the Hojoken clan, which is my favourite clan from the Sengoku period, and I'll be continuing to play them as I'll kind of walk you through these various systems. So let's get going. The first system, or the first thing I wanted to show you, is the development side of things, because in this game you need to build up not just your military, but also your territories. With all those orange icons there are various buildings, from ninja towns, villages, to ranches, to forges, to fisheries. You need to build it all, and you need to do it efficiently with the money that you've got, so that you have the resources you need for the military side of things. Next up is the negotiation side of things. All of that green area are alliances that are forged, and you can forge alliances in a number of ways. You can send ambassadors to just deal directly with the various lords of each land, or you can go through arranged marriages. You can support one side or another in a military conflict that they get themselves involved in by sending your supplies or even troops. You can do a whole bunch of things, and basically the goal is to improve your relations with each of these territories, and then from there, if it fits your own strategy, form an alliance with them. As you can see, my strategy in this particular instance has been to form strong alliances with everybody west of me, so I can focus on conquering the east. The other green that you see on the east side of my territory, on the blue territory obviously, the green territory you see on the on the east side of me is a clan that I've actually I threatened to invade them, so they capitulated, and they're not so much an ally as an actual vassal. They won't They're not actually part of my territory, but they are effectively owned by me. So that's another option you have, rather than just simply invading them. Because this game is not just about military conflict, it's about the politics of the era as well. And this strategy's been pretty effective. The more allies you can have around you, the more you can focus on the immediate threats. And then, of course, you can always break the alliances later on and take their territories if that fits your strategy as well. Next up, I'm going to show you the actual war side of things. So when you declare war, and in this case I've decided to declare war on a pretty hapless little territory which doesn't even come close to my military power at this point in time. Easy conquest, easy land, I could use the resources, which is why I did the invasion. But once you decide to do that, the first thing that will happen is that all of your allies, if they see fit, and they all do, they will send you resources and whatever you need to help with the invasion. And this is what you're seeing right here. I'm getting various provisions and supplies from my allies and my vassal. At that point, the next thing you need to do is form your force, your marching force. And the game is actually pretty streamlined in this way. You basically pick where you want to attack, and it will form a default force from the armies and towns that you have immediately nearby, which is what that is, you're seeing right there. You can mess around with that if you want. If you want to keep troops in a particular town because you're perhaps worried about what another territory might do while you're busy on your attack, you can do that. But I didn't see the point in this particular instance. I just went with the default and ended up with an overwhelming force, as you'll see. What you're seeing right now is actually a break in the action. The game is very historically based and will actually run through various historical moments of importance through the time. So these are kind of predetermined bits of narrative that tie in exactly with what happened in the real history. They've got nothing to do with me actually at this point. These are not, they're allies, but they're not actually enemies, and I'm not particularly involved with them at this point. But because it's that point in time in the game needs to tell you the bit of the story, because it tries to be a bit educational as well while you're also playing it. So again, yeah, this is actually happened in real life. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with my own campaign, but the game is full of these kind of little cutscenes that pop up just to make sure that you're aware of what point in history you're actually at, and highlight some really key moments through the Sengoku period that had the biggest impact on basically the entire nation of Japan. In this case, this is the rise of Oseki Kenshin, who was one of the most powerful warlords by a long way. Historically, he ended up attacking the Hojo, which is my clan, but in my campaign, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen, but I have a really strong relationship with them. You might also notice the cats. The cats are an optional thing, you don't have to have them, but if you decide to turn the cats on, it replaces a lot of the most important military leaders with these cute, adorable cats, which are from another series of Koei Tecmo games, the Nobunaga, not Nobunaga, Nobunaga Ambition series, which is Japan only, basically, but yeah, it basically replaces all the samurai warlords with cats, and it's very cute. You'd recognise Nobunaga himself from Warriors All-Stars if you've played that game. He's one of the playable characters. They show up at TGS every year. They're very popular mascots. So I think to lighten the mood of the game, because otherwise it could be a fairly dry strategy game, Koei Tecmo decided to let you play with cats as well. It doesn't have any effect other than aesthetics, but they're too cute. I couldn't resist. Anyway, back to the war. So I'm about to invade this little hapless nation. As you can see, they've only got 2,900 people, and I'm gathering a massive force. I think it gets close to 15,000 or thereabouts, which was pretty big for that time in Sengoku period, excuse me. No, 17,000. So my 17,000 force is about to go and besiege the Oda. They're not actually going to put up... That's not Nobunaga Oda, that's a different Oda family. They're not actually going to put up a fight in this case. They're just going to let me basically capture the castle because there's not much point. They tried to negotiate a peace terms there. I declined because I wanted the territory rather than to let them survive. This is something else. This is a trade deal that I organised with another nearby neighbour. As you can probably get a sense of, there's a lot of complexity. You need to be thinking about a lot of things at once while you play. So while you might be in the middle of a military campaign, such as this one, you do need to be thinking about your allies, your trade deals, all of that kind of stuff at the same time. And when this ones are quite easy, this is a straightforward military campaign, so I don't need to worry about it too much. but when the kind of the forces are closer to one another, it can be quite a lot to deal with. And I think the Nobunaga's Ambition series has been quite poor generally at bringing new players in, because it is so overwhelming for a lot of new players. This one doesn't really deal with that. Unfortunately, the developers are kind of tied in how much they can do, because they want the complexity in the game, and without that complexity it's not really Nobunaga's Ambition anymore. But at the same time, the more complex you get, the less accessible it is for newcomers, or at least the more overwhelming it is. And there's really not much they could do. So, as you see, I've actually conquered. I jumped forward a little bit in time. I've gone and captured the Oda territory, so now it is now part of my land, and I now have the biggest nation basically in Japan. All of those Triforce, that's the Oda family crest. All of those Triforce represent my cities. And I thought I'd finish off this video just by showing you what happens when an ally gets themselves in combat. So, this is Usagi Kenshin, actually, which you saw in the cutscene before. He's about to go on an invasion of a couple of his nearby rivals, and he's asked me for support. So I've decided to support him because he is an ally, and I want to keep him on side. He's too powerful to let go unchecked. So the best thing to do is to improve relationships with him, so he never actually wants to send his armies into your territories. So he's gone to war with one, and I've supported him with resources. And he's about to go to war with another one. So fighting twice, two fronts simultaneously. That's how ballsy he was. Here we go. He's about to attack another territory at the same time. And again, I'm going to support him. In this case, he's actually asked for me to send him some troops. So I've decided I will do that. And once you do that, it's very hands-off, but once you decide that you're going to send him some troops, which I'm not actually going to put any conditions on, I'm just going to give them to him to help him out, which gives me the biggest boost to my relationship with him. I could ask for gold or guns or whatever in exchange, but I'm not. As you can see in the top right corner right there, my little force that I've sent to help him out is on their way, as they're marching orders to go and join his military. So that's just a tiny part of the game. There's a lot to think about, and I've talked very fast, and it's a very fast overview. So don't take this as a tutorial. If you do decide to play this game, be prepared to spend a couple of hours learning it first, but it is worth it. So have a read of my review, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about the game once you've had a chance to play it yourself. Thanks very much for watching.